The movie opens with a female reporter and a cameraman investigating a crime scene. But then all of a sudden,
Grade up on your...
they are attacked by a deranged man, who ruthlessly murders both of them. The scene then shifts to a flashback from 3 days ago, featuring a group of college students: Allie, Chuck, Chloe, Mitch, Jason, Naomi, Todd, Chad, and Mike. They are all heading to camp together in the forests of West Virginia. While they are driving, a pickup truck passes by, and two hillbilly men named Dale and Tucker stare at them, making them suspicious. Sometime later, they realize that they still need to bring beer, so they stop by a gas station to buy some. While Chad is looking for beer, Allie wanders around the shop. But then, she comes across Dale staring at her, but Chloe soon arrives and takes her away. Later, Dale is completely fascinated by Allie and continues to stare at her. He confides in Tucker about his newfound crush, and Tucker encourages him to go ahead and talk to her. However, Dale claims that such a pretty girl would never be interested in someone like him. Still, Tucker claims that he is a good-looking man and urges him to believe in himself. Eventually, Dale decides to shoot his shot, but due to his nervousness, he ends up talking very strangely, which freaks Allie out. Chad then asks him to stay away from his friend, and the students get in their car and drive off. This upsets Dale very much, and he curses himself for being so awkward and a loser. Afterward, he and Tucker also drive off, and on the way, they are stopped by a police officer who asks for the driver's license. Tucker shows him his license and says that they are heading to their vacation home by the lake. Hearing this, the officer advises him not to go, claiming that there's only pain and suffering up there. However, the duo ignores his warning and heads toward the destination. The two arrive at their cabin, which is very old and rusty, but they are excited to have their own place and call it a mansion. As they look around, they notice that a part of the wall is covered with newspaper clippings about the killing spree that happened at this place years ago. Moments later, Tucker places his hand against a pole, which begins to collapse above him. Fortunately, Dale rushed to him and managed to save him just in time. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, the college group is having a campfire and enjoying themselves. During their conversation, Chad shares a story about an incident that occurred in this place 20 years ago. He claims that back then, a few college students had come here for camping when suddenly, a hillbilly showed up and started attacking them. He ended up murdering everyone except a girl, who somehow managed to run away and survive. Hearing this, the group is horrified. However, their mood suddenly shifts when Chuck suggests they go swimming in a nearby lake. That evening, while Allie is alone, Chad approaches her and tries to make advances. He claims that they are better than the rest of the group and suggests they should be together. He then attempts to kiss her, but she refuses and leaves. In the next scene, we see Tucker and Dale in a small boat on the lake, fishing together. They then overhear the teenage group enjoying themselves at the same lake. Moments later, their eyes fall on Allie, who is on a big rock. Seeing her look like a lake angel, Tucker gets excited, but Dale feels nervous. He then yells at Tucker to stop watching, which is also heard by Allie, causing her to slip and accidentally fall off the rock. Soon after, the duo notices that Allie still hasn't emerged from the water and gets worried. Dale jumps into the water, he finds her unconscious and the duo places her in the boat. Her friends notice this, but instead think that the hillbillies are trying to kidnap Allie. Tucker shouts that they got their friend, but the group gets scared and runs away. They immediately approach Chad, and tell him that Allie has been abducted. Chad then picks up an axe and rushes to the lake, but by the time he arrives, the duo has already left with his friend. The following morning, Allie opens her eyes and finds herself in the cabin. Believing she's been abducted, she screams in terror when Dale approaches her with pancakes. However, Dale thinks she doesn't like pancakes, and goes to prepare another breakfast for her. Meanwhile, in the forest, Allie's friends are paranoid and still looking for her. Chuck suggests contacting the police, but Chad claims that cops are of no use. Despite this, Chuck takes the car keys and leaves to find the police. A while later, the group stumbles upon the cabin, and becomes convinced that Allie is being kidnapped there. Inside the cabin, Dale brings another breakfast for Allie, and she asks what she's doing there. Dale truthfully explains how she got knocked out and he and Tucker brought her to the cabin. He also introduces his dog and claims he is very sweet. Dale mentions that he tried to call her friends, but they ran away in fear. Hearing this, Allie finally realizes that Dale is harmless and not trying to hurt her. Outside, the group sends Mitch to check on Allie, and he carefully approaches the cabin. Meanwhile, Tucker is using a chainsaw to cut wood, during which he accidentally hits a bee nest. The bees begin to attack him, so he runs toward the forest in panic with his chainsaw. Seeing this, the group thinks that he is trying to attack them, so they all run away to save their lives. Mitch is running alongside Tucker, constantly looking at him out of fear. Due to this, he accidentally impales himself on a broken tree, resulting in his death. Back in the cabin, we see that Allie and Dale are having a good time playing board games. Moments later, Tucker comes in and scolds Dale for not helping him from the bees' attack. He claims that he saw Allie's friends running in the forest, although he doesn't know why. Hearing this, she decides to go out and find them, but Dale asks her to rest, saying they will look for her friends. Meanwhile, in the forest, the group finds Mitch's dead body and is horrified. They assume that the hillbilly duo must have killed him and left his body as a message. They think they should leave, but Chad refuses and says that they all can handle these two killers easily. Suddenly, they hear someone approaching, so they rush to hide behind the bush. Dale and Tucker then arrive and start yelling for the group. When they receive no response, they carve a message on the wood for the group and leave. When the group sees the message, they again misinterpret the situation and assume that it must be some sort of threat. After some time, Dale tries to dig a pit to make an outhouse, while Tucker is working on a wood chipper. Allie approaches Dale and asks about her friends, so he tells her that they left a message for her friends and they must be coming soon. The girl then offers to help him dig the pit, and Dale comments that a pretty girl like her shouldn't do such work. At that moment, her friends secretly watch this and assume that she is being forced to dig her own grave, so they decide that they must do something urgently to save her. With this, Todd grabs a wooden spear and runs toward Dale to attack him. The three of them fall into the pit, and Todd is impaled by his own spear, resulting in his death. On the other hand, Mike decides to attack Tucker. The idiot accidentally jumps into the wood chipper and gets chopped instead. Tucker tries his best to get him out, but to no avail, and the group now think that he deliberately murdered Mike. Afterward, Tucker and Dale lock themselves in their cabin with an unconscious Allie. They believe that these students have made a suicide pact and are killing themselves on purpose. Dale suggests calling the cops, but Tucker doesn't think it's a good idea because they will be blamed for the murders. So, the duo decides that they should clean up the mess before anyone arrives. Meanwhile, in the forest, the group feels helpless as, one by one, all their friends are dying. Suddenly, they hear a police car approaching, so they run towards the street, even though Chad refuses to let them go. It turns out that Chuck has brought a police officer with him to capture the killers. Back in the cabin, the duo successfully takes Mike's body from the wood chipper after much struggle. But as they proceed to bury it, the cop arrives with the student group. The two get really scared and try to explain the ridiculous incident to the cop. They also claim that Allie is inside, and they have not hurt her a bit. So, the cop leaves the students in the car and heads inside the cabin to check. After checking on Allie, the cop discovers that she is unharmed and well. But the situation gets worse when he leans against an unsteady beam, which collapses on him and hits him in the head.
Be deceiving.
He ends up dying due to his injuries. Seeing this, the students assume that the hillbillies must have killed him and plan to attack them. Chuck then takes the revolver from the police and attempts to shoot the duo. However, since he has never used a gun before, he accidentally ends up killing himself. Here Chad arrives and tries to shoot the duo again, forcing them to run back to the cabin. Moments later, Dale looks outside the window, and is horrified to notice that Chad is holding their beloved dog at gunpoint. Tucker then asks Dale to use a nail gun as a distraction, while he goes through the back door to rescue their dog. Soon, Dale starts shooting the group with the nail gun, and Tucker manages to free the dog. But in the process, he himself is discovered by the group. He tries to run as fast as he can, and hides in the wood. Unfortunately, Chad eventually catches up to him and knocks him out. When Tucker wakes up, he finds himself hanging upside down on a tree. He tries to explain to the group that they didn't murder their friends, but Chad refuses to listen and proceeds to cut his fingers. Back in the cabin, Allie regains consciousness, and an upset Dale tells her that her friends have taken Tucker. With tears in his eyes, he also explains how they tried to kill his dog. Allie realizes that her friends must have misunderstood the situation, and promises to resolve it. Just then, they hear someone knocking on the door and cursing Dale's name. Allie decides to check what's going on, and she is horrified to see her friends' lifeless bodies on the floor. Soon, she finds something wrapped in cloth on the doorstep, and Dale quickly realizes that it is Tucker's clothes. As they open it, they find his fingers inside, and a note telling Dale to come and get his friend. Having had enough, he picks up an axe and decides to confront the group. Allie tries to stop him, asking him not to complicate things further, but he says that things have already gone wrong and he doesn't understand why her friends think he and Tucker are psychos. Following this, Dale goes into the forest, where he eventually finds his friend hanging upside down by a tree. Tucker tries to warn him not to come any further.
Tucker! Hold on, please!
Thankfully, his balls are spared from the trap, and he proceeds to set his friend free. Meanwhile, Chad and Naomi sneak inside the cabin, where they find Allie and ask her to leave with them. Chad then starts pouring fuel all over the place to burn it down. Allie tries to stop him, saying it's a big misunderstanding and that Dale and Tucker haven't hurt her. Hearing this, her friends are shocked, and they believe that Allie must have fallen in love with her kidnapper. She vehemently denies this, but Chad becomes very furious and proceeds to attack her. At this moment, Tucker and Dale also arrive at the cabin. Allie then calms everyone down and asks them to discuss the situation. She serves them tea, but Chad admits that he is allergic to chamomile tea. Allie then requests that both sides explain their situation one by one before jumping to any conclusions. Here, Chad recounts how, 20 years ago, his parents and their friends came to this location and were attacked by a hillbilly. His mom was pregnant during that time, and unfortunately, the killer tortured and assaulted her. Despite the ordeal, she managed to escape from this place, while his father and the rest of the group lost their lives. He then reveals that his mom was sent to a mental asylum afterward, and he heard this story from his grandmother. Dale feels bad for what happened to Chad's parents, but asserts that he isn't responsible for that situation. Meanwhile, Jason and Chloe arrive outside the cabin, and see their friends drinking tea with Dale instead. Thinking their friends are in danger, the two decide to take action. Jason then shows up with a grass cutter and tries to attack Tucker. Chad immediately flips the table on Dale and tries to attack him with an axe, but Tucker saves him. Enraged, Chad throws a lamp at them, but it goes straight to Jason. Chloe attempts to extinguish the fire on Jason, but instead uses alcohol, and the fire soon spreads from there to the fuel tank, and the entire house begins to burn. Amidst the fire, Chad tries to escape but is grabbed by Naomi, while Tucker and Dale take Allie and they manage to escape from there. Soon, the cabin explodes, and they think that everyone is dead inside. But then, Chad stands up with his half-burned face, and proceeds to attack the three with his axe. They quickly get into a car, and drive away from there. But on the way, Dale gets distracted, and he ends up crashing the car into a tree. Sometime later, Dale opens his eyes and notices Tucker, who is badly injured and leaning on a tree. He inquires about Allie, and Tucker reveals that Chad took her away. Tucker then urges Dale to go after her and save his crush before it's too late. Tucker reveals that their dog can take him there. Soon, morning arrives, and with the dog's help, Dale reaches an old lumber mill. Inside, we find Chad, who has tied Allie to a piece of wood. He scolds her for siding with the kidnappers, and claims he will forgive her if she apologizes. Not long after, Dale prepares himself with some tools, and then he shows up inside the mill, causing Chad to run away. Dale then attempts to free Allie, but suddenly, Chad's voice comes out from a speaker, stating that she shouldn't have betrayed him. With this, He activates a switch that starts the machine, which begins to cut the wood beneath Allie. Dale panics and tries to cut the rope, but Chad arrives and kicks him away. The two men then fight for a while, and at one point, Dale throws an axe toward Allie, which eventually cuts her rope and frees her. He then takes the chainsaw, and starts attacking Chad with it. After pushing him away, he and Allie run upstairs, and block the door leading to the basement. And then to their surprise, they find a newspaper clipping there and see a man in the picture who looks a lot like Chad. They assume that he is Chad's father, and he was the hillbilly responsible for the massacre 20 years ago, which contradicts Chad's story. It means that Chad is also half hillbilly, which explains his violent nature. Just then, Chad enters the room, and tries to attack them again. Dale shows him the newspaper, revealing that his dad was the hillbilly responsible for the killings. Despite this, Chad refuses to believe it. Meanwhile, Dale finds a box of chamomile tea, and recalls that Chad is allergic to it, so he throws the tea leaves into his face, causing an asthma attack. As a result, Chad falls out the window, and seemingly dies. In the next scene, news crews arrive at the cabin, and state that the deaths seem to be the result of a suicide pact. It turns out that their leader, revealed to be Chad, whose body has yet to be found. We notice that the reporter and cameraman are the same two from the film's opening scene. At the hospital, Dale arrives to see Tucker and gives him a beer. Tucker excitedly tells him that the doctor managed to sew back his fingers. He then asks about his progress with Allie, and Dale reveals that he still hasn't asked her out, but they are going bowling tonight. That evening, in the bowling alley, Dale gives Allie a helmet as a gift since she always gets knocked unconscious by hitting her head. He tries to confess his feelings, but gets too nervous, and seeing his anxiety, Allie suddenly kisses him, and tells him that she feels the same way towards him. And this is where the movie ends.